Hello, everyone from all around the world. If you're watching from Egypt or the Netherlands or similar time zones, good afternoon. If you're watching from anywhere else, good morning. My name is Karim Sheta, and I'm the founder of the page Food for Thought. And today is a very special day because we're starting our series of interviews on positive psychology in the business world. And to start this series, we have a very special guest today, and an inspiring one for that matter, and that is Ralu Nistor-Lustermans. Ralu, good afternoon, and how are you doing?
Good afternoon, Karim, and I'm very honored to be here. Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for asking, and the honor is all mine. I know you have a very busy schedule, so I really appreciate you being here today. Um, Obviously, people are very excited to get to know you after the bio poster, but in case someone hasn't seen your poster yet, could you briefly introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Yes, of course. Thanks for this opportunity. And once again, thank you for inviting me to this series of interviews you are going to have because it is an absolute honor to speak about positive psychology and how it links into business. As you know, I love this theme.
Mhm.
Um, how did I come to this? Is a bit of a journey I didn't really plan. Um, I started my career in internal audit, and I worked in various countries and companies in Europe. Europe is a bit my home, if you want, all around Europe. And I came across positive psychology due to a real interest of how organizations are changing and what does it happen. It was a bit of a mix of a personal and professional interest, if you want. I don't know how much our audience is familiar with what internal auditors are doing, but there's nothing it is interesting, I have to say. It's quite an honor job to have. Um, it is not necessarily linked to psychology. We look into processes. We look on how companies comply with various regulations, on how their internal control is more effective, how their processes are more effective. And as I was progressing in my career and I was going through, my audits and everything, I realized that, okay, processes are one part of the organization, but people play a super big role in it.
Mhm.
And we were not talking about people. We were not, giving any attention to people.
Mhm.
So I continued. And then 2008 happened and we had a worldwide financial crisis. I thought, oh, that's interesting. Why
Mhm.
that? So
Mhm.
I really started being curious about culture and I started being curious about corporate governance.
Mhm.
So as I was continuing with my career in internal audit, I've done a couple of additional studies that were linked into corporate governance and business ethics. And then it came back to people and purpose and meaning. And I was like, okay, I want to know a bit more about that. And as you progress in life, you kind of get into your personal crisis and you say, oh, why I'm not happy, how can I be? And that's how I came across positive psychology.
Mhm.
That was somewhere probably around 2009,
Mhm.
roughly.
Yeah.
And I started on a personal journey with that, and then linked it into my corporate journey. And then magic
Mhm.
started happening.
Yeah.
And apart, my personal career, of course, I'm also a wife and a mom and a stepmom, and I do my best to bring that positive psychology in my personal life as well. So
Wow.
yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's very impressive. You know what I love is that every guest I've brought on, the beginning of their journey had nothing to do with positive psychology. It was always a job that you couldn't possibly imagine it was related to positive psychology. And then in some way you end up learning positive psychology. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't have like a target audience. It approaches everyone. And I also love how you said there was a financial crisis and your action wasn't like, oh, what am I going to do now? It was, okay, why did that happen? How can I change it? So it's really impressive. Okay, so obviously you've worked in the business field for many years. One of the terms that I've learned from you is organizational effectiveness. And we'll learn in a minute to anyone who's watching how it relates to work culture, which is our topic today. Um, but, anyways, from your perspective, Rulu, what is the definition and importance of organizational effectiveness?
Oh, that's a big important question. Which organization doesn't want to be effective? And what effectiveness means actually for an organization, it means achieving their results and their goals with less waste or less costs, less maybe people turning around. And that's where, part of positive psychology maybe comes into place. You don't want to maybe sometimes you want, to have new people in, but you don't want people to drop off, people which you like to keep. So organizational effectiveness, it is really, for me personally, a concept about achieving more effective results for nurturing leadership at all levels. And then we can discuss what exactly leadership is, because everyone has a different understanding of leadership. And in my opinion, it's about taking ownership of what happens around you, being the best you can be at that point in time, and then people will follow you. It's not about having the role. For me, leadership is not linked to a role, and it is no role title that really makes you a leader, but it is your attitude and your behavior and your how you position yourself, if you want, and how you deal with the others around you. And that will make you more effective. And if everyone in the organization is more effective, then the organization becomes more effective. But an organization needs to create that environment for everyone to be effective. So I don't know if I lost anyone on the way of explaining it, but it is, I think, a two-way street, if you want.
So what I'm hearing is that it doesn't you can't create a culture, an effective organization in mass. You have to start with one person and then it's replicated and so on until you reach an organizational level. So it starts with us, basically, each individual.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you say. It is, you can create it in mass if you want, if it is in everyone's perception that it is what they want to do. And what I don't think it can happen, it is saying, I want to be an effective organization, and that will just happen.
So it's a long journey.
About the processes, it is about the people, it is about the technologies. And I think what links into our topic about culture is the way people really behave. I was stressing this point. I will share with you a personal thing.
Please.
I have a stepson, and he's an adult now. And I remember when he started living with us, we had this. We probably, most of us, if we worked in a corporate environment, we heard about lean and about being effective links it too much. Don't waste your time, don't waste things in the process, do it as efficient as you can. And I remember he was going around to prepare his breakfast, and he was taking a mug from a cupboard, going and put it on the table, and then he was going to the same cupboard and was taking something else and put it on the table. And then he was going to the next cupboard and taking, I don't know, the cornflakes and put it on the table. Then he was going to the same cupboard and taking the jam and put it on the table. And he was making hundreds of steps in the morning in the same space, and I was getting crazy, like, okay, let's pause, let's breathe, let's make this effective. When you go to that cupboard, could you please take everything you need from that cupboard, bring it to the table?
Exactly.
That cupboard, take everything you need from there and put it to the table. What does that imply? That implies that you have a plan, you know what you want to achieve. You know that for breakfast you want to have, I don't know, all those things, and they are in that cupboard. And you don't go 3 times at the same place, but because you've thought about it, you had the process in mind, you take it once. And I think it is very linked to our business life.
Wow, that's an excellent example. I might actually steal that from you and maybe change the characters, but that was actually a very cool example. Yeah. And obviously that one, and actually, if you think about it, that scenario with the breakfast and everything won't only affect his, breakfast plan, it will affect his whole day. Maybe the few minutes and efforts that he'll save can impact him in some way over the duration of the day. Who knows? So
I'm not sure he's happy with me sharing this. He might even see the interview at a certain point. But then what you said, it is really true. I think 10 years later, we are still laughing about that. And he's saying, you told me to do that, so I'm doing it in my work life now.
Okay. So it all turns out for the best. So that's the important thing. Very cool. So you mentioned this at the beginning when you were explaining organizational effectiveness. You were saying that a few of the tools depend on positive psychology, and obviously we'll talk about that in the work culture section. But I do have like a sort of a generic question. Is positive psychology important in the business world? Because the reason I did this segment is because over the past few months, we've only been talking about on a personal level, positive psychology on a personal level. But in the business world, is positive psychology essential? I know this is maybe a very broad question, but just like in brief, what do you think?
I think it is massively important, positive psychology in organizations, and maybe we didn't grasp yet to associate and to use the terms together. Maybe lots of people in the business environment, and I say maybe because we talk globally here, I don't have an understanding of what each country, each organization says or thinks about it. So it is just my personal, opinion here. I think maybe we are still resistant in connecting the two because we feel organization is about profit and it is about results, and all this thing about positive psychology, we don't fully understand it. It is a bit fluffy and is a bit, highway, and yeah, we can't link the two.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think they are massively linked, and we will detail a bit later on how exactly they are linked. But positive psychology is a new concept somehow, a new term. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it is only for a couple of 50 years now that we are talking more about positive psychology. We
Exactly.
are used to the traditional psychology. We are in the traditional psychology deals with trauma and deals with
Mm-hmm.
the past and deals with solving what happens in the past, so you can be okay in the present. And of course, in a work environment, we don't want to deal with that. It is not the right place to deal with that. Therefore, we have traditional psychology. It's a good thing to
Mm-hmm.
have. Now,
Mm-hmm.
positive psychology is a completely different thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
about the present and it's about how we experience what we have in order not to arrive to have trauma. We don't look to the past necessarily. Yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
can learn from the past, but we don't go to solve the past. We
Mm-hmm.
take what it is from the past that serves us, and we are building in to deal with the present and possibly
Mm-hmm.
build resilience for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I think both types of psychology are very important, but I find positive psychology very relevant for organizations because it links into the experience, the resilience, the way we behave at work can make that organization really effective. Because at
Mm-hmm.
the end, an organizational effectiveness depends on its employees, depends on the way the employees behave at work, and
Mm-hmm.
their behavior, it is very much enrooted in their values, in what happens into their lives, in their thoughts, in what
Mm-hmm.
happens into everyone's head. So
Mm-hmm.
I do see a very strong link. And I don't always necessarily, maybe when I talk with organization, tell them that I use positive psychology,
Mm-hmm.
because if anyone it is resistant at the term, at the
Mm-hmm.
end, we use the tools, and the tools are always there and they show us the results.
Mm-hmm. You know, I really like. I completely agree with everything you said about the values and making use of the past and everything. The sentence that really strikes me, and this really relates to the business world, is the last sentence you said, that you don't say that this is positive psychology, but you are using it because people have that subjective opinion that, oh, it's fluffy, as you mentioned before. And that was something me and a few of my business partners were talking about, is let's not mention positive psychology or the word happiness. Let's teach the tools but not mention the title. So I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So like now you've established two important terms: organizational effectiveness and positive psychology. Let's talk about the connection between both, which is work culture. Now, which is why we're here today. How does work culture relate to organizational effectiveness? How does it contribute to it?
Where do I start? I find it difficult sometimes to explain it. You know why? Because it is so obvious to me that I think like, how can I explain this?
Yeah.
It is not clear.
Oh, it's not an easy subject. Hmm.
No, I think it does deserve some explanation, and why I'm thinking that is because we use, and especially here in the West, we use a lot organizational effectiveness. We use a lot the terms of culture. We use a lot behavior, or sometimes even positive psychology, and everyone has an opinion about it, and everyone has they made their own mind and they gave their own definition. So actually spending some time in explaining what everyone understands with it, it really, puts the ground basis and we know what we talk about. Because we might
Yeah.
start a conversation between two of us and think that we talk about organizational culture, and we might think about something else. Actually, I call it organizational culture. You
Uh-huh.
say work culture, which it is absolutely fine, might be the same thing, but it is a really interesting, links us really into culture, isn't it? And
Yes,
the words
definitely.
we use. So it is really important to spend the time to clarify that. So what do I think work culture is? It's a term that it is not invented by me. And I picked it up during my studies when I was doing organizational culture, and it is really the way we behave in an organization.
Hmm.
And it is so simple that it is like, what do you mean the way we behave in our organization? It is really the way we conduct ourselves at work.
Hmm.
However, as simple as this seems, there can be a big difference between the way we conduct ourselves at work as employees and the way the organization would like us to conduct ourselves at work.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we have that delta that we'll arrive to talk about, where I think it is important to bring positive psychology in. But
Hmm.
practically, work culture is the way things are done in an organization. And
Hmm.
that is from the way you work, from the moment you work into the reception, if the organization has a building, from the moment you work into the reception, and you see how you are welcomed, you see what it is on the walls, you see, how you are invited in. And if it is not a physical organization, is, I don't know, we have a lot of digital businesses at the moment. It is your customer experience, right?
Yep.
Is the way you are treated when you get on the website. It is easy
Hmm.
for you to find or not, and that it is your customer perception of that behavior of the
Hmm.
organization towards you. Then behind that, behind the screen, is an employee that needs to do the work for me, the customer, to be happy, right? So,
Hmm.
how difficult it is for that employee to do his job, or from the moment he comes to work or wakes up and works from home, whatever, and opens up his computer, how is he welcome? How does he feel about having a bad day at work? Can he share it with anyone? Are the processes? And one thing not to forget, culture is also linked into processes,
Hmm.
because the way the processes are working can determine if the behavior you want your employee to have, it is aligned or not. And that really makes me think into what we were saying earlier, the 2008 financial crash, when the big thing coming out was that actually the culture was wrong,
Hmm.
because financial institutions were all having the right values or all having the right displays, but their processes internally were driving the wrong behaviors.
Hmm. Okay.
So it is a link between processes and employees or customers' behaviors.
Hmm. So there are like people factors and non-people factors, behaviors and processes. I do have a question. When you say behaviors, does that mean both internal factors in human beings, or is it just external, like assessing how people react to different things and scenarios and so on?
Could you repeat the beginning of the question, Karen? Sorry, because I didn't pick up. You said you had a question and then the connection stopped a little bit, and then I heard
Oh, yeah,
the.
yeah, sure, sure. So when you say the word behaviors, does that mean that we focus on people's internal factors like values and strengths and so on, or is it just external factors like how we react and how people behave, or a mixture of both when you say the word behavior?
I don't actually make a difference between the two, and I will explain
Mm-hmm.
why. I mean, I make a difference between internal values and behaviors, but I think what I see and what you see in my behavior now, moving my hands or whatever I do, or what you saw in my behavior when we were working together during our journey together, was part of my thoughts and my values. So
Mm-hmm.
my behaviors are driven by my thoughts, my values, possibly my physical condition for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
So the behavior it is, I think, the outside expression, if you want, of
Mm-hmm.
thoughts of values, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's very
What do you
interesting.
think?
Well, to be honest, like obviously you have much more experience than me when it comes to these matters, but I don't know, maybe because I'm relatively new to the field of positive psychology, but I've always treated them separately. Internal behavior as in values and so on, and external behavior as in just watching someone and seeing why does he act that way, or what's his behavior like with other people. But what you're saying is 100% valid, so I can't really argue with that.
Let me bring you an example. Yesterday, I was running a workshop for a team, and I was co-running it with a very
Uh-huh.
good friend of mine who is really great in team effectiveness. And we are
Okay.
having this conversation about behaviors and how my behavior affects, for example, my team
Mhm.
effectiveness, the way I behave.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he asked a question which I really found really interesting. He said, "Do we agree that everyone wakes up with the intention of having a good day or achieving something good at work? That the intention we put in the world is a positive one?" And of
Mhm.
course, there are people who maybe, they don't wake up with that intention, but we hope those are not so many.
Mhm.
And we don't have them around. We are keeping a positive mindset.
Mhm.
So
Uh-huh.
if I wake up with the intention of doing the right thing, maybe my behavior perceived by those, in my team doesn't
Mhm.
connect with my intention. Then where does that leave me?
Hmm. Interesting. Mhm.
But I can only control my behavior. I can't control what you think about my behavior.
Mhm. I've never thought about it that way, to be honest. Hmm. This is why I try not to get into a debate with my guests because I know they'll get the upper hand at the end. But yeah, but yeah, yes, and I think we should actually do this as a separate topic in another interview. They call it the art of behavior and how do you classify it. So yeah, but thank you for that. I was really interested to know your opinion. Okay,
Thank you.
so you're most welcome. So okay, so now we've defined what is work culture, and I'm intrigued to know, okay, so we know that it's important. We know that it should exist for organizational effectiveness. How do we accomplish it? So, like a lot of these questions I know need separate interviews, but so what are the most basic tools in order to establish a proper, productive work culture from your experience? And does positive psychology play a role in some way?
That's a very big question.
Yep. Yeah.
I I would still like to come across an organization that sorted out having the best culture. And I know there are a lot of organizations who are having good culture. We read about them, organizations who are having a really good culture. I think there is no one framework for an
Mhm.
organization to have a good culture. There is no one framework to say, this it is what you have to do to implement a good culture. I
Mhm.
think there are some principles or I don't know if we call them guidelines, not guidelines. I think I will stick with the word principles in
Mhm.
my understanding. And if I would like to link that into positive psychology, I think I will think about the Perma model from positive psychology.
Yeah.
And what is PERMA? We learned about PERMA in positive psychology as one of the tools that brings happiness. And a bit like you know, I stay away from using happiness in positive psychology with certain organizations because I might get blocked before I even start. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
talk about the concept instead of linking it to, you know, happiness. And despite the fact that I believe they are really valuable. Therefore, the PERMA, I think, model is a relevant one. What PERMA stands for is positive emotions, P for positive emotions, E for engagement, R for relationship, M for meaning, and A for achievement.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many models out there. I find this really relevant for an organizational culture due to how it is broken down. And it starts with P and it is positive emotions, but I will keep that for the end. So let me go for the others and explain why do I find this really relevant. And I have to say, I haven't yet seen an organization using it to deploy their
Mm-hmm.
organizational culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've seen elements of it when organizations were looking to transform their organizations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because organizations are looking to have engagement. Which organization nowadays doesn't talk about engaging their employees?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows that if you want to have your employees delivering and staying with the organization, employees want to be engaged. They want to know what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So engagement is a big part. You want to be part of that thing that you are working for. You want to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So engagement, it is how you communicate in an organization towards your employees. How do you tell them what it is happening? How do you take them through the journey so
Mm-hmm.
they understand that it is a way of behaving from an organization perspective? If I
Mm-hmm.
work for an organization that doesn't tell me what is happening, that I just get in and I need to do my little task every day, and then I go out and I don't feel part of a bigger purpose. And yeah, I will not feel really great.
Mm-hmm.
I will not feel I'm really contributing. I don't feel engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Engagement is a big part. It is the same outside of organizations in our lives as well. But let's keep it only to the corporate environment now. So is engagement. Now,
Yes.
relationships. We can't work really in teams without creating a relationship. That it is not really work, that it is being a robot, that is executing a task. We all
Mm-hmm.
need to have relationships in our, I don't know, companies that we started up or in the organizations we work with. You need to build up a relationship. We build up a relationship in order to work together, right? We had
Exactly.
small chats, you don't need to become a friend. You don't need to, um, know everything about the other's life, but you need to have a report.
Yeah.
You need to build a relationship. You
Mm-hmm.
need to ask, maybe depends on the culture, how you are doing or how is with you or something, that it is not only linked to that task that you share together. So you understand where the other is with their head, with their feelings. So you build that relationship. And that
Mm-hmm.
links back into engagement, because when you build a relationship, you engage yourself and you engage the other. So that's also you don't expect that engagement to come to you only from a higher level, but you also engage at your team level by building relationships.
Okay.
Then,
That. Mm.
yeah, go
No,
ahead.
no, no, go on. I just paused because, okay, I always thought engagement was an individual thing, but I guess I'm here to learn as well as my viewers. So please go on. Okay.
Yeah, again, it is how I see it. It is it is from my experience, it is how I deal with it.
Yeah.
It is not good or wrong, it is just a view. I'm really open for the viewers or to challenge me on that, because I don't know everything. I don't have an experience I'm sharing.
Yeah, totally. Mm.
The meaning part, I think we are living in a world, especially during these pandemic times where people are more and more looking to meaning. What does that mean for me? And not only that, but is why I'm doing what I'm doing. How can I do things different? How can I make a difference? What's the purpose of that? So I think meaning for me links into purpose, vision, and really making a difference. And at an organization level, if we want to think about organizational effectiveness, I see it a bit like a cascade, if you want. It is organizations are having a vision, then they have a mission and a purpose.
Yeah.
And then if they are able to engage their employees, allow them to create relationships in their teams, and then translate down that meaning, purpose, and mission into what you do on your daily basis. You give meaning to the job. And if I understand that, for example, I'm there and I'm the cleaner of the organization, but I understand that being the janitor of the organization, when I come at the end of the day and I clean the desk of the people, when they come the next day in the morning and they find their desks clean, that helps them concentrate and gives them already a good start. That gives me a purpose. That makes my job meaningful. I know I contribute to their effectiveness. And I think that's a big thing. It doesn't make me feel like, oh, I'm just a cleaner, I'm not good at anything, or no. What I'm doing sets you up for success because I took away aware, I set it up an environment which makes you able to concentrate. And if I wouldn't have done that, you would have wasted, I don't know how much time. So it makes me feel good about my job. There are a couple of YouTube's, I think, videos, clips about people working in hospitals, and I don't remember the name, but it is a famous one. A lady working in hospital as a cleaner in the cancer department, and it was talking about, okay, it must be really hard. And she said, yes, it is really hard to be cleaner in this. But she said, I'm happy with my job because my purpose is to make it easy for the doctors and for the patients. And I'm really, proud and happy to do what I was doing. And it really stuck with me because I said, this is amazing. This lady really understands her role. And it is an important role. It is not any role. It is an important role.
Yes.
So that's meaning. That's brilliant. And then we spoke about engagement, relationship, meaning, and then achievements. We all want achievements. Organizations exist because they want to achieve something. And I'm not talking about profit here because for me, achievement process is not an achievement. I work with charities and I work with non-for-profit organizations. So they are not looking for profit, but they are looking for achievements. They are looking to achieve something on their purpose, on their goals. So they are looking to progress. So as organizations, we want achievements, but as individuals, we want achievements as well. So allowing your employees to have achievements, to set up goals, and then to achieve them. And also, very important, what we forget, and I'm the first one to put my hand up, I don't normally celebrate achievements. I have achievements, and then I move on for the next one. And what I'm missing there is, I'm on the journey to learn that, to slow down and celebrate. What I miss there, it is really building on my self-confidence that I've done a journey to achieve there, to arrive to achieve that goal. And it is not about the achievement for me I discovered in the last years. It is about the journey I took to that achievement. Because that journey was packed probably with obstacles or with challenges. And overcoming those build up my resilience. Another important aspect of positive psychology. How do you build up a your resilience? And if we don't stop to celebrate those achievements, we can't look back on how we became more resilient. And suddenly we think we are not resilient, but actually we are more resilient than we think. So our through here in resilience was not a purpose. We were talking about as a Perma Model. Because achievement, I think, is an important bit. Having goals achieving them and stopping to celebrate them as an organization, recognizing that for you as a total organization, but also for individuals. Now, I said I will leave P for positive emotions at the end. And why that? Because I think what we spoke about contributes to positive emotions. Positive emotions is linked into, getting that adrenaline, getting the dopamine and serotonin, as we call them happiness hormones.
Yep.
But he feeling good about what happens. So if we have a good engagement, we feel good about it. If we have good relationships, we have good experiences. If
True.
we feel that we have a meaning, again, we have a good experience when we go to work because we know why we do what we do. If we
Yes.
achieve something, again, it is a great experience. We have positive, emotions. We create positive emotions. If those positive emotions will not be there, what are we left with at work? Anxiety, frustration, depression. And
True.
where do those bring us? Now, the other day I was giving a speech about smiling and the importance of smiling to our brain. And we both know the importance of smiling in positive psychology, isn't it?
Yes.
And it is really interesting because one of the things that smile does is just create that release of dopamine and serotonin and just gives you a positive emotion without practically almost doing anything else.
True.
So those positive emotions are really, really important in our workplace because they help us deal with the stress. So having positive psychology linked into work culture and organizational effectiveness doesn't mean that we don't have stress.
Of
And I
course.
think it is a very important thing to highlight. It doesn't mean that we don't have stress. It doesn't mean that we don't have work pressure. It only means we are better equipped to deal with that.
Wow. I have to tell you honestly, and I'm saying this genuinely, like how you integrated the Perma model into the workplace was very eye-opening for me. And here's a funny fact. I talked about the the Perma model in my very first interview on the page. So this was in like June or July. So we're talking about almost half a year ago, and I did that interview with Dr. Amira, if you remember her from our course, and this is the funny part. Dr. Amira is actually with us, and she's watching the live show, and she's been commenting for the past few minutes. So hi, Dr. Amira. Hope you're well.
Hi, Mira.
And I'll share with you her comments a few minutes later. But thank you for that. That was very, very
Thank you.
beneficial.
Oh, I'm really pleased to hear that she's there watching.
Yeah, exactly. I think she actually watches a lot of the interviews, especially when it's people. I've interviewed you and a lot of people that were with us in the course because each one has his or her own area of expertise. So it's very interesting. Okay, speak now. Uh, Before we get to the obstacles or the challenges, I do have one final question about this aspect. Um, you talked about the Perma model and how you can integrate it into the work culture. And when it comes to the word culture, this is maybe a bit broader term. Um, are there things that we can like? What's your opinion about culture? How are there things about work culture, like the Perma model and so on, that you can apply in social cultures, like in social gatherings, workplace, or even when it comes to mental health? What's your opinion on
Yes. I need to take a deep breath for this.
that?
You probably know that I'm also mental health first aider, and mental health is very, very important for me. And once because I experienced stress myself. I don't know if I really had a burnout, but probably very close. Working in big organization can bring a lot of pressure. But not only big organizations. I think the last year showed us that are not the big organization having the highest pressure, but are the care organization having the highest pressure. I even don't dare to start thinking the pressure that our doctors and nurses across the world have been under in the last year. And I think we hear more and more about that link with mental health. Culture, mental health, positive psychology. Goodness me, it's really a big topic. Let's forget a little bit about the word culture and let's translate that into behaviors, mental health, and positive psychology, if you want. And also, if we hang on in the positive psychology, term, let's translate the positive psychology in actually what it is. It is a science that equips us with tools that will help us deal with the present and build us stronger for the future. That's how I translate it easily, if you want, for people who don't necessarily need to have the whole scientific explanation. So if I, broke it down in what I think it is a simple way to explain it to maybe my 6-year-old son, it is about the tools that will help it is about the science that will give us the tools to deal with the difficult situations. Mental health can put us in very difficult situations. I'm not gonna bring in the very extreme mental health issues because I think those are to be dealt with in our situation. But let's say the anxiety, the high stress, the continuous stress at work, how those can be treated with positive psychology. Again, for me, it is quite obvious. It is through positive emotions. If through engaging, we need engagement for our well-being. We need people to be interested in people. And you're asking, how do we bring that into social cultures? I think it is quite challenging and quite difficult in the times we are living now. Here in the Netherlands, we started a new lockdown. Just yesterday, it was announced from tomorrow we go in a new lockdown. And one of the challenges, again, organizations are having is people going back and working behind their screens. And we were talking earlier about culture. It is like you can't really translate that culture from the office into the digital environment unless you create a connection with the people. And it is massive, it is difficult, and we need to take our time because until we create that connection with the person and we understand what happens from an empathic compassion area or aspect, we can't ask for them to achieve results because we don't know if their state of mind is good enough to concentrate on delivering. So I don't know where I'm going here with this. I think what I'm going is explaining that we have a lot of tools in positive psychology to deal with our mental health. And those tools, we don't necessarily need to think to them as positive psychology, but we need to think to them as connecting to others, being interested in others. We don't need to be from the same national culture or same social group to have compassion or empathy. It is across the world. Someone was telling to me last year, we are in the same storm, but we are in different boats, which feels very different. And I think it resonated with me so much because there are those who are, big boats and they feel more protected. And there are those who are hardly on, a surfing board in the big storm. And their mental health might be more affected. So are we looking after them? Are we asking them how they are doing? Are we engaging with them in any way? Are we interested to build relationships with the people around us now? Or are we, too worried about our world and we try to close down? When we do that, the risk for ourselves it is of developing anxiety and depression. So being a bit more open to the world around us and build relationship, it is not only for the others, it is actually for us as well. Is sometimes reaching out to a friend and ask, how are you doing? Makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Because on the other hand, you'll hear, oh, so great, you asked me. You don't know if anyone asked them anything in the last week. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they live with a family, like, and no one asked them how they were doing because they were busy with the children, or I don't know, someone else. And I moved to the Netherlands last year, as you know, from the UK, and I had a tough year because I had no one around me to really understand what I was going through. And my friends were somewhere else in another country going through,
Mm-hmm.
their problems. But here, there was no one else really asking me, and how are you doing today with your
Mm-hmm.
integration in the new country? And not because people didn't want or didn't, know to us that, but didn't know me enough. And everyone was going for his own struggle. And I understand that. Maybe I didn't ask others either.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
realized it for myself from my own experience that that can be tough.
Mm-hmm. Obviously. Mm-hmm. Oh, oh, I thought you were gonna add to that, but yeah, obviously it can be very
I
tough.
can go
Yes.
on, but I...
No, 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 no. I was very engaged as you were saying. I was very engaged with the conversation, so I was just listening. Mm. So, like, I totally agree, especially with the example that you said. And actually, what I've noticed is this. I was just telling, I think it was one of my friends yesterday, that regarding social support, I told him that sometimes people do small actions with me that make a difference, and then I sort of pay it forward. So I remember, like, a friend of mine called me before. It was like a very brutal phase in my life, and he called me, and then it made all the difference to me. And now, whenever I know that someone's going to start a very harsh phase, I have to call him and check up on him, even if he's not a close friend. So, yes, even if we don't do that, at least do it to someone, and maybe he'll pay it forward to someone else. And then you'll start a chain reaction.
Yeah,
So, I totally agree with that.
yeah. It
It's
is
awesome.
important. We don't even realize it until we. I'll give you a small example of
Please.
what linked to this. Um,
Mm.
I think 7 years ago, I went to listen to a TED talk in London,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
there was this lady coach, voice coach, and I always found it very difficult to talk in front of an audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to her, and I took one thing from what she told me, not me, but she told to the hundreds of people that were there around. And I used it, and I use it in my coaching as well, and I shared it with my coaches. I never connected with her. I never told her anything on how much I was using that. And I used this specific thing this week again. And then at a certain point, I thought again about her, and I thought, all right, I'll Google her on internet.
Uh-huh.
She's a famous writer, so I was not having hopes that she will answer back to me. But I saw her on LinkedIn, so I sent her a message on LinkedIn, and I asked her to connect with me. And I sent her a message, and I said, by the way, I took this tip from 2015 from your talk, and it really made a difference to me. I never told thank you. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And she came back to me within half an hour saying, it made my day. Thank you.
Wow.
I was really, because I thought this is a famous person. This is someone that doesn't need to know from someone unknown like me. And she came back saying it made my day. I would have never thought that. And that
Yeah.
also really made me think again to what you're saying. We project our thoughts into what you think it is in the other's lives, but we don't check.
Mm-hmm.
And there where trouble starts for a lot of us with culture. I
Yeah.
project probably a lot on other people's culture and values and behaviors, but I don't check with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And taking that moment to check will probably have more in all those things that we talk until now, building relationship, having positive experiences, because when I project, it is just my thoughts. I don't get input. I only, do output.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And as you said, like, you project yourself, but it will have, I think, also maybe, like, not to replicate what you said, but I think also has to be a bit of, I don't want this to sound wrong, but it has to be a bit of a selfless act. Like, you're doing it because it's the right thing or because it's a good thing. You don't really expect anything in return. So I think that's an essential element of projection, the part of where no expectations, but in a positive way. So yeah, my next question was going to be, what are some of the challenges, but I think you tackled the major one, which was mental health and stress and depression. and how to resolve it with one of the simplest tools, and that is social support. I think like to talk about this point alone would need a whole other hour or something. And honestly, I don't want to end this interview, but I do know that you have a busy schedule, and I do know that some viewers here in Egypt have to go eat or something. But um, I just the least I can say is that all your answers and your day to day was extremely beneficial. And for anyone watching, I highly advise you to follow Ralu. You'll find all her links in her bio poster, the one right before this interview. And this week, we'll actually be sharing articles from Ralu's website. So we'll also be sharing her links then to follow her. Because it's the least we can do, obviously. Before we sadly end the interview, Ralu, what's one final message you'd like to leave with our viewers?
Hmm, that's a very good question.
Mhm.
Um, Probably my message is that doesn't matter how difficult today is, there is a tomorrow.
Mhm.
And even if you don't have a reason to smile, smile can always help you smile again.
Mhm.
It just creates that, positive experience that will give you the strength to go through whatever happens.
Mhm.
We all, I think, go through quite challenging experiences at the moment, and keeping a smile on your face is important. And
Mhm.
you asked me for one. Don't forget about your network and your friends because that's so important.
That is 100% correct. And by the way, that was something that Ralu told me in our course about the smiling, and it's still stuck with me till today. I always remember her telling me about the importance of smiling and how she does it in her personal life. So Ralu doesn't give advice based on theory. She practices it and then she shares her experience. So that's what a true coach or trainer or consultant or any business expert does. So, Malu, seriously, it was a pleasure having you today. And I'm sure everyone benefited from you, starting with me. And Dr. Amira I'll actually try to show the comment if I can on the screen. Yeah, here we go. Amira says it was great to meet you again, Malu. And
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you so much, Malu, and I'm sure we'll meet in another interview very soon.
Thank you very much, Kareem, for having me, and thank you to everyone who listened to us. It has been an absolute honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, Ralu, and thanks again.
You too. Stay safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Bye bye.